God's providence. You know, friends, there is a reality that we all need to accept. There is a reality that we all need to accept. We don't deserve, listen to me, friends, we don't deserve anything from God. We don't deserve anything from God. Let me rephrase that because I see some surprising faces here. We don't deserve anything from God but death. You know that the wages of sin is death, do you? You know that we all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Don't you know that? You also know that all our righteousnesses are like filthy rags. You also are acquainted with the fact that the soul who sins should die. So yes, dear brothers and sisters, we don't deserve anything from God. We don't deserve anything from God. Let that sink in your mind. I do not deserve anything from God. Now today is day 210. 210 of my wife Vivian being in a hospital bed. This coming Tuesday would be seven months. 7 months. 7 months of hardships. But I came this morning to this place to tell you, my dear family, that not only God allowed us to get into this storm, but He came in with us. He has been with us every single moment. He has been with us every single challenge. He has been with us in every single disheartening decision. And He has been with us in every single event around this tragedy. God has been at work. We have never been alone. God has fulfilled His promise to be with us all the time. I want to praise my God, dear friends, in front of you right here for these 7 months of God's providence. 7 months of God's providence. And you're still looking surprised. You're still looking surprised because some of you might be saying, God's providence? What are you talking about? God's providence? Your wife has been near death in multiple occasions and you call on God's promises now? Providence now? Your wife is still unconscious in a non-induced coma and you call on God's providence? What is wrong with you? And I do have many things that are wrong with me, but that's a different story. But I do want to mention at least one of those that might be considered an error that actually pertains to the conversation today. And that is, friends, that I do believe in the providence of God. Does anyone relate with me this morning? I do believe in the promise of God. I believe that everything that happens in God's universe has a purpose and nothing goes unnoticed by the creator of it. I believe that God uses natural resources in this natural world to fulfill His supernatural will and plan. Let me show it to you because I still see some faces with a surprising attitude there. Let me show it to you, friends. Let's go to the text. Let's go to the book of Ruth. And now, let me tell you, the book of Ruth, a couple of details that will help us understand what we studied this morning. The book of Ruth is the only book in the Old Testament named after a Gentile. The only one. That you will not find any other book that has this background as Ruth has. But not only that, the book of Ruth is the one book out of the 2 books in the whole Bible that is named after a woman. Only 2 books. Only 2 books. Now, there is another book in the New Testament where we have another Gentile supposedly that wrote that book. Does anyone remember or know what that book is? Luke, right? The Gospel of Luke was also written by another Gentile. So one in the Old Testament, one in the New Testament. And does anyone remember who is the other person, woman, that has a book in the Old Testament? What is that person? Esther. Esther. I'm just testing you, friends. I'm just testing you. Now, the book of Ruth is the word Ruth, the name Ruth actually means friendship. It means friendship, and to be more specific even, the book of Ruth, the word Ruth means compassionate friendship. Compassionate friendship. Now, the experts described this to be compassionate in the following way, and I want you to have all these concepts ready and fresh in your mind. What is to be compassionate? To be compassionate, the experts say, is to feel deeply for another person as they experience the ups and downs associated with life. Listen to this. To be compassionate is to not just tell someone that you care, but also to show them that you care by being there before they even ask for it. To be compassionate. Now, in the book of Ruth, which is only 4 chapters, short, small book, and in this book we find a fascinating flow of events that gives us a good understanding of what this compassionate God, that is the main focus in the whole Bible, is portraying through this story. We see things that seem to be accidental. Seem to be what, friends? Accidental. So we see, for example, that there had to be a famine in Judah, so that Elimelech's family will have to move out of Bethlehem. Accident? Was that an accident? And we also see that they had to choose Moab rather than the multiple places that were around them. Why did they go to Moab? They had to go to Moab. Was that an accident? We also see that the famine in Judah had to end so that Naomi could consider going back to Bethlehem. Was that an accident? And of course, we see that Ruth had to decide to accompany Naomi back home. Remember that there were 2 ladies that came, daughters-in-law, that came to Naomi and said, we want to go with you, but only one went ahead and continued with that offer. Her name, Ruth. The other one went back to her nation, went back to her family, went back to her gods. There is one more, though, one more accident that seemed, quote unquote, that seemed to be part of the plot that we see here in the book of Ruth. And that is where our story for today starts. And that I want to invite you to come to verse 3 for that. And verse 3 starts saying, then Ruth left. Remember, the mother-in-law and Ruth were together now in Bethlehem. They went back to Bethlehem. All that was supposed to happen happened. People were paying attention to the people that were coming into town. They saw Naomi. They recognized Naomi. You know the story. They recognized Naomi. They called her by her name, and she simply says, don't call me Naomi. And remember that Naomi means sweet. Don't call me Naomi. Call me Mara instead. And Mara is the opposite. It means bitter. Because she was blaming God for all the things that she went through. Call me bitter. And so after all this thing, there was a morning that they woke up, and Ruth comes to Naomi and says, can I go to work? Can I go to bring something for us to be able to eat? And the mother-in-law says, you go, you may go. And so this verse 3 happens after that. Then Naomi leaves and went and gleaned in the field after the reapers. And she happened, and I want to emphasize this word, because this word denotes that something didn't happen by accident. It says she happened to come to the part of the field belonging to Boaz. And remember that Boaz was already introduced as a related to this family. So she happened to come to a field that belonged to somebody that was a relative of hers. Was this an accident? Happened to come to the part of the field belonging to Boaz, who was of the family of Elimelech. Now, the word Boaz, the name Boaz, means strength. So you can tell that this man was not just any weak man. This was a special man, and this woman, who was a special woman, is being brought to this field. This is not an accident, friends. And I don't know, friends. I don't think things happen by an accident here. And this is what this brings to my mind Proverbs chapter 16 and verse 33, when it says, "The lot is cast into the lap, but its every decision is from the Lord." See, the reason why I wanted to bring you to this text this morning is because I want you to know that everything that happens in your life happens for a reason. And no matter how far you are from God, and no matter how rebellious you are to God, God is always present in everything that is happening in your life. And that, my dear friends, is what God's providence is all about. Is this an accident? So what I see here in this happen to go to this field is the providence of God. And you may remember that there was a law given for the Israelites to take care of the poor, to take care of the needy. Right? And you can go to the Leviticus chapter 29, you can go 19, you can go to Leviticus 23, you can go to Deuteronomy, and you will find that law. It simply says that when somebody was to harvest their field, they were to leave some of the trees, fruit trees, or some of the wheat there untouched for the people that didn't have anything to eat from. And they calculate that it was about 25% of their cultivation that they would leave for others to eat from. That is actually another evidence of God's providence. Another evidence of God's providence. Now, what does this have to do? What does God's providence have to do with Vivian? Everything. That's the short answer for this. Everything. God's providence every time, every hour, every day of these 210 days. From the beginning, every single event has been like, God, did you do this? I will not even take you. I will not even take you to all that has happened again. If you don't remember, you can go to our YouTube channel and watch all the 16 parts of this series. And you will be reminded of what the Lord has been up to. However, friends, I can mention one that you don't know about. Are you ready for this? You don't know about this providence of God in Vivian's life. 200 days in a hospital. 200 days in a hospital. How many of you have been a month in a hospital? How many of you have had a loved one, a month in a hospital? How many of you? A month. Okay. How many of you have had it 2 months? 2 months? 2 months. Okay. How about 3 months? 3 months. All right. How about 4 months? How about 4 months? See, friends, to have somebody, a person that you love, for 7 months in a hospital is not only hard, it is also expensive. Right? It is also expensive. No normal person can afford all of that. Right? 7 months in counting? No one can afford, a normal person, right? I'm not talking about Bill Gates no, a normal person would not be able to afford 7 a year, whatever months this will take. And friends, I already saw the bills. I already saw all all these bills, and we are not talking about hundreds. We are not talking about hundreds or thousands. We are in the millions realm right now. Millions. Obviously, I can't afford that. Obviously. I came to learn that my income is too low. Listen to this. Is too low to afford that kind of expense. But it is too high to receive any financial assistance. What a pickle, right? But check God's providence. Check God's providence. So I applied for assistance, financial assistance, and they saw my income, and it's just one, mine. Vivian is not working. They saw my income and said, no, you need to have this much so that you are eligible for that. So they rejected it. They approved it, then they saw the income and they rejected it, like right away. So I called them, why are you rejecting it after you approved it? And I talked to a representative there, and they talked to me, and I was like, how will I, no matter how much I make, I would not be able to cover all those expenses. I need help. And so I kept on talking to this person, and it went nowhere. At the end of the conversation, she simply says, there is nothing we can do. And that was it. I thought, I don't know where this experience is so interesting, because it's not only what happens with Vivian's body and what happens in Vivian's room, it's also what happens outside of all that mess. There is a lot of happening, sometimes even more outside than in the room. And so coming back to the conversation with this woman, we say, okay, I say thank you, and it just hung up, and I didn't know what to do. I was just trying to break my brain to see how I can work this out and all this. And I went into the room and I started doing what I do with Vivian and for Vivian, and just forgot the phone and left the phone outside and started giving massages and just putting lotion and cream on Vivian. Those kind of things that I always do every day that I go there to see Vivian. And sometime after, I went back to my phone and I saw that I had a missed call. Right, I had a missed call, and I checked my phone, and I had also a voice message. So I played the voice message and I started listening to the voice message. And it was the same woman that I was in the morning on the phone with. And she was saying, after I talked to you, listen to what this person, an agent from the government, after I was on the phone with you, after I spoke with you, I couldn't be at peace. This is what she said. I couldn't be at peace. I was just thinking about my conversation with you, thinking about you guys, and just trying to see how I can help you. So I want you to call me right back, because I think I have a solution for you. And she said, yeah, you can apply to anything that the government does, you are not eligible for, except this one that I found. So I want you to call me. I want you to go back to the hospital and ask for this application. I think we can do something with this application for you. And so ever since that moment, friends, listen to this. Ever since that moment, this lady has took us under her wings, and she's doing all the process and working all these applications as if I were something to her. Can you see God's providence? Yes or no? And I'm not confusing the terms, because some of this sounds like God's provision more than God's providence. But I want to tell you, friends, that God's provision is simply the greatest evidence of God's providence. When God provides, it's because He has been already there where you're going to. When God gives you the provision and supplies, it's because He knows where you are going to be landing. And even before you get ready, and even before you experience that particular situation, God has already provided the means for that. And that is why, friends, that is why I resonate. It's my favorite verse. If I died here in Washington, listen to me, friends. If I die before you, be sure to put in my plaque on the grave, Romans 8:28. That's my verse. It has been always my verse. Be sure to write it down. Forget about my name. Don't worry about the year I was born, the year that I died. Don't worry about that. Just write Romans 8:28 for me. And we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to His purpose. All things work together for good. Even those painful situations, even those challenging experiences, all things work together for those who love God. I wonder how many of you love God this morning. I wonder how many of you have accepted the call of God according to His purpose. Then you have those two requirements, and that means that all things will work together for good for you. And do you know how that God does that? God's providence. God's providence. So it was not an accident that this woman ended up going to that field. That's God's providence. God knew all these that would take place. God knew that Elimelech will run away from the promised land when he was supposed to stay there. Even when we make mistakes, when we make the wrong decisions or a wrong decision, God will tweak it so that He will fulfill His plans and promises and will in your life. God's promises, friends, is what keeps me going, because I know God's providence is what keeps me going, because I know the same God that has shone through all in the past, He is ready to shine again. And so she didn't come by accident to this place. She didn't come by accident. And of course, we find what is found in verse 4. This man comes back to his field. Boaz comes back to his field. And you can imagine parking his Escalade Cadillac, or the biggest car and most luxurious. This man was a person. Oh, you can tell also that Boaz didn't think or act the same way that Elimelech, his family member, his relative, did. Because Elimelech left the promised land and Boaz stayed. And what was the result of that? Boaz at this moment was wealthy. And so he comes in his luxurious car and he parks in front of all his servants. And now you see what is found in verse 4. He comes back, he tells the reapers, in verse 4, the Lord be with you. And the reapers answer, the Lord bless you. This is the typical language that you will find at a construction place, right? This is how masons greet each other. God bless you. No, this is not typical. This is very atypical. As a matter of fact, what you see here is simply how virtuous this man was. So listen to me, friends. Listen to me, young people. Not only God is orchestrating all this for Boaz to find a woman and for this Ruth to find Boaz, but these two people are both virtuous. They are all right. They are both righteous people. God is bringing together these righteous people to not only come together, to love each other, to get married, to have kids, but these people are found in the Gospels later as the lineage of Jesus Christ. Accidents? All these, friends, is God's providence. All this is God's providence. Hey, and a word about Boaz. And this again for my young people here, for all those who are single. Be sure to choose a godly person over a good-looking one. Godly person over a good-looking one. And I know, we go by eye, right? We always see what is attractive. That's why we want to. That's the one that we want, because she or he looks good. Looks, they go away. Young people, looks go away. They don't remain. Character stays. Characters stay. So you don't want to look a person. You don't want to choose a person just because that person looks good. Be sure that person fears the Lord. That's what you want. That's what you want. The name Boaz means strength. Strength. So this person, this Boaz, was not just another man. He was strong. And he was anchored in his Lord. This is what you need. Single people, this is what you need. This is what you want to see. This is what you want to experience. But these two people are brought together by the Lord, by God's provision. They are brought together. And this is not unique for their experience. It happens to us all the time. It happens in the Bible again and again and again. We see God making a cover for Adam and Eve after the fall. We see God preparing a well for Jonah. We see God bringing the Israelites to the sea before he parted the sea. We see God choosing his son to redeeming the world before the foundation of it. See, friends, God loved us even before we even recognized his existence. God's providence. God's providence is God's powerful work in a sinful world. That's what it is. That's what it is. And so this man comes, Boaz comes to his people, and the first question he asked, what was that first question? You remember? You remember the question? Remember that Ruth was young and most likely beautiful. What was the first question he asked? The same question that all of us ask when we're single and we are looking and we find somebody attractive. Who's this? Right? And see, we lose when we read the Bible, we lose intonation, we lose the tones that they use. Maybe he went like, wow. Right? Mamacita. Oh, mamacita, let me translate. Mamacita it's Spanish for this is a beautiful lady. No, it doesn't. It's But we don't know what he actually said. We don't know what he actually said, but definitely something caught his attention, his eyes. And to make it worse, or to add to this, we see also that later he calls his workers all together again to the luxurious car that he for sure was driving at this moment. He calls all the reapers and said, "You see that woman over there? Don't look at her again. That will be the last time that you look at her. You see all this land? If you look at her, they will not find your body because I buried it somewhere in that big field. Don't look at that woman." So this what's taking place here is God bringing this, but again, these two people doing their part. And of course, he asked about this woman on a more serious note now. He asked about this woman, and the report given to him was about a virtuous woman. You see, the reputation of this woman preceded her. It went before her. When these people introduced the woman to him, all that they had to say about the woman was good things. And here's a very important piece of information and counsel for all of us. We need to be careful with what we say and what we do, because our reputation is the one thing that we need to fight to protect. Because the moment we lose our reputation, friends, we're losing our lives. We're losing our lives. And so this woman had a good reputation, so much so that the moment somebody asked about her, the people were able to give this good reputation to Boaz. And I want to bring you just to the last verse, the last section of this. I like what we find also in verse 6 about this woman going to the field to glean and to reap. See, Ruth wasn't seeking for a husband. Do you notice that? She wasn't seeking for love. She wasn't seeking for protection. And here's another lesson for us, friends. What Ruth was doing, she was actually simply working. She was working. And while she was working, while she was serving, because she went there not only for herself, she went there also for her mother-in-law. While she was serving, God provided for her the perfect husband that she needed to have. And here's a lesson for us, right? We don't need to worry too much about who am I going to marry, who is going to be my partner for life. Instead, I want to propose that instead of worrying about that, you should be worrying about serving God, and He will take care of the rest. That's what the Bible says, that we are to put God first in all the rest of the things. Everything else, including the companion that you deserve and you want, will be added unto you. What is it that you have to do? Just keep serving and let the rest to the Lord. Because God's providence will take care. God knows what you need. And He knows what will complement to all the gifts you have, to all the plans you have, to all the dreams you have. He will bring that specific person to you. Now, if you're already married, and you are the virtuous part of your marriage, but the other person is not so virtuous, then here it is. Continue living as a virtuous person, and let the other one follow you. Follow you. Because your faithfulness to the Lord, as you serve, God will take care of the rest that you may be lacking. I do remember when I saw Vivian for the first time, Adrena. She was 15 years old. And some of you will say, you look at teenagers. I was also a teenager. So that's okay. When a teenager looks at another teenager, it's okay. So she was 15 years old. I saw her for the first time. She was dressing. She was wearing her school uniform. Back home we use uniform to go to school. And that was the first time. I still remember. I have her image clearly in my mind the first time I saw her. And the first time I saw her, and she doesn't know this, so hopefully, can you pause the video so that she doesn't see it later? The first time I saw her, I knew I was going to have something with her. I didn't know I was going to marry her, but I ended up accepting God's gift for me, and that was Vivian. Because Vivian, the 18 years that we have been married, has been a real gift to me. And I know she's the virtuous woman here. I'm not a virtuous man, but she is. And this has been one of the greatest blessings that the Lord has given to me. And see, friends, I wasn't looking. As a matter of fact, I was trying to, young people, I was trying to go to the seminary. Right? I went to Andrews. I wanted to do my master's degree to be a pastor because my bachelor's is not on theology. So you have to go to the seminary and get this master's that is called Master of Divinity, which prepares people that haven't gone to the theology courses to be a pastor. So I was going to Andrews to take that class or that degree, and I went to Andrews and they accepted me and I passed all the tests and I was good to go. And they gave me at this point I needed to change my religious visa into a student visa, and they gave me the I-20, the document that will qualify you to have your student visa. And so I went back home to visit my family with that visa secured, and with that visa being the warranty for me, the guarantee, for me to be able to acquire the new visa. To make the long story short, I went to the embassy 6 times, and they denied it to me every single time. So I said, normally, I'm trying to serve you. Right? I'm trying to be of use in ministry. I want to go there. I could study something else, but I want to go there because I want to prepare myself to serve you. Why are they denying it then? And so 1 year went by with all these applications, with all this time going to the embassy and seeing all these people saying no on your face and all that. But during that time that I came back to my country 18 years ago and spent that 1 year in Ecuador, it was the time that Vivian and I fell in love. So I went to the Philippines instead of Andres. I went to IAS in the Philippines to do my master's. And I said to Vivian, just something similar to what took place with, and that's what I'm mentioning this to you, friends, with what Ruth said to Naomi in chapter 1. So I said to Vivian, I'm going to go and study in the Philippines. If you come, I'm going to marry you. That was actually my proposal. I mean, some people put rings in a cupcake. I said, if you come to the Philippines, I'm going to marry you. And when she wakes up, she will tell you that. That's true. That's the only time that I offer marriage to her. 6 months later, she came. 8 months later, we were married. And we started the best life, the best part of my life. I thought God had abandoned me. But at that moment, during that year, God was sharing His providence with me. And the greatest evidence of His providence was the provision of the best wife that a man can have. And so, friends, it's just a reminder that when I wasn't looking for a wife, I was just trying to serve my God. And when I was serving, He provided for a wife. The wife that I couldn't ever. Have you seen Vivian? When was the last time you saw her? Do we have a picture of Vivian, guys? No, I'm kidding. Vivian is beautiful. For those of you who don't know her, Vivian is beautiful. When you see her next to me, you say, what is that guy doing with that woman? That was God's blessing to me. I wasn't looking for Vivian. I wasn't looking for a wife. I was serving God. And while I was serving, God gave me Vivian. Single people, I don't know what you're going to do with that piece of information, but I give it to you. You decide what to do. But this woman, Ruth, I like the plot here in the book of Ruth, because the moment this woman comes to realize who Boaz was, and Boaz is just simply show his protective behavior and his righteousness and all this, she bows down before him. And this is what she says in verse 10. And with this, we come into the end of the study for this morning. In verse 10, she simply says, so she fell on her face, verse 10, bowed down to the ground, and said to him, why have I found favor in your eyes, that you should take notice of me, since I am a foreigner? The story of Ruth is the story of every single Christian. It's the story of the Christian community. It's the story of the Christian church. Because we are Gentiles. Because we are foreigners. But there was one, and we will sometime study the next chapter where we talk about the kinsman or the redeemer, the Goel. And the Goel, friends, the redeemer, is the one that brought, in the case of Ruth chapter 2, was Boaz. Boaz was the kinsman, the relative that was to redeem them and bring them back to society and give them a life. That's what Boaz did. And God brought Boaz to bring redemption to this family. And that's what this family received. But that's exactly what you and I need, friends. Because we are foreigners. We are foreigners to the glory of God. We have come short to that. And since we are foreigners, we need somebody to redeem us and bring us back to the life that God created us to enjoy. Jesus is that Redeemer. And that's what we call Jesus Redeemer. Because it was Jesus who was sent to redeem us and to clean our sheets, so that we will have a blank sheet to present to the world as new people, restored, renewed, and redeemed by Jesus Christ. You are no more foreigners. You now belong to the family. You are not any longer strangers, but you belong to the family. You have been rescued, you have been redeemed, you have been restored by Jesus Christ, our nearest kinsman. And friends, that's why the promise found in Isaiah chapter 43, verse 1 and 4, fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by your name. You are mine. You are mine. This is what God says to you. Whatever issue you're going through, whatever situation you are experiencing, whatever pain is being brought to your heart, taking away your peace, remember that God is the one that says, you are mine. Since you were precious in my sight, you have been honored, and I have loved you. The story of Ruth, friends. The experience found in chapter 2. It's a story that describes all of us. It's a story that describes those of us who have decided to follow Jesus, and who have decided to surrender our lives to the Lord and to give it all. Not only be involved in something, but be committed to that something. Do you know there is a difference between involvement and commitment? There is a huge difference. And for next year, those of you who have accepted to be a leader in this church, I want to tell you, friends, we don't need your involvement. The Lord needs your commitment. The Lord needs your commitment. When you see a piece of bacon and an egg, you know which one is involvement and which one is commitment. Do you know? An egg, there was some involvement from a chicken that gave that egg. But a bacon, and I don't want to say vegetarian bacon because that doesn't apply to the illustration, but a real bacon, it requires the death of the animal to give that. Commitment. Commitment. That's what this world needs. Christians committed to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ. Christians that have been redeemed by their nearest kinsmen, that are ready to give their lives for the gospel of Jesus Christ. In the meantime, Vivian is still in that hospital. We're still dealing with the insurances. We're still dealing with the hospital. It's time for her to be transferred to another place. It's time for her to go to a different place. And the insurance world is so crazy because the insurance is denying for Vivian to stay where she is now. But the insurance also is denying for her to be transferred to a different place. So I promise I'm going to be fighting for Vivian. That's what I've been doing. When I call them, I fight with them. Sometimes I have to remind myself that I'm a Christian. Sometimes I have to remind that I'm a pastor. I can't talk to them like that. But it's difficult when you see your wife, your loved one, in a bed. She can't defend herself. But in the meantime, God will show up. While you are in the storm, remember, you are not alone. Because God not only allowed that storm to happen to you, He also decided to come into the storm with you. He will give you glimpses of what He's doing at that moment. Just last night, we were having our family worship time together. And when I say family worship time together, I'm not referring to Vivian and I. I'm referring to Vivian's family and my family. We get together 3 times a week for the last 6 months, we have been coming together to pray and study God's Word. Never this happened before. And so we studied the Word, we studied the Bible, and then we went into the prayer time. And when I do that in the hospital, I use my headset, I use my earbuds, and you know, there are 2. But it occurred to me that I could share one of them to Vivian. I put one of them into her ear, and then we start praying. And her sister started praying. A sister that she's very close. She's one of the 12, as you know. But this sister, they are very close to each other. And she started praying. Her sister started praying. Friends, listen to me. This just happened last night. The moment the sister started praying, Vivian opened her eyes. Not like this. She opened them wide, like the biggest eyes I ever seen. And I wanted to capture that, so I took my phone out and started trying to take a picture of that so that I can send it to them. And when I was trying to take the picture, I noticed on the screen tears. She was not only opening her eyes because she was listening to her family pray for her. She was crying. Friends, this fight is worth it. Because not only God is providing every single step, but He's also showing His providence every single step. When I see things like this happening with Vivian, I know God is at work. I know Vivian is conscious, church. I know it's 7 months, and even the doctors from the insurance said, tell the husband. This is what the doctors from the insurance tell the doctors in the hospital. Tell the husband to let it go. That's what they say. These people don't have a heart. Tell the husband to let it go. How will I let somebody that is alive go? If my wife were dying, I would not have a problem with that. I know where she's going to go. I know that I'm going to see her again. I don't have a problem with that. But she's not dying. She is conscious. Vivian is conscious. It is true. It is true. I don't understand why we're still waiting for the big miracle, but family, because I have seen God's providence in the past, I know I will see it again. This is the God that I can trust. This is my God on whom I'm resting. I'm resting on God's providence to come true in this situation for His glory and for His honor. Providence, my dear friends, God's providence is God using natural events, natural resources to fulfill His supernatural purpose and will. And now as we come together to pray, to sing together, Lord, friends, and bring this program to a close, as our young people start to line up and get ready to sing the closing song, I want you to keep in your mind and think about this situation, all that we have been going through, because I know I'm not alone in this situation. I know you're suffering with me. I know you're battling in prayer with me. And I thank you for those prayers, and I thank you for that love, and I thank you for all you have done during this time, friends. And so I want you to keep in your mind that as we continue going through this storm, the same providence of God that has been with us yesterday will continue being with us today and tomorrow. And every time life gets hard, I want to invite you to look at what happened at Calvary. Be reminded that that kinsman that died, that person that died on the cross was our kinsman. And he died at that cross, on that cross, because he wanted to pay our redemption. And so he did. He paid our redemption. We are not prisoners anymore. We're not in prison anymore. We are free.